How many of you have seen the black sun? Most people call it a solar eclipse when the moon blocks out the light. But it looks like a black sun, doesn't it? It's about the same size, same shape. It moves in front of the sun and blocks out the light. So what's going on? The Bible tells us that the moon governs the night. The moon governs the darkness. And so if light is good, then darkness must be evil. That means the moon must be evil. That may sound like lunacy. Have you ever seen people act up during a full moon? They're like lunatics. Ah, the blood moon. What's especially disturbing is seeing all of the books on the moon and witchcraft. It's as if the moon is calling the witches. There are many conspiracy theories surrounding the moon, of course. Many say that aliens are there, that the mind control originates from there. The infamous organization known as NASA has run a couple of probes into the surface of the moon, and they say it rang like a bell. What does that mean exactly? And who's going to believe NASA in a time like this? We've all seen the flat earth videos. We know that they're photoshopping everything, including the dark side of the moon. So how do we know what's going on with the moon? Well, we don't. Exactly. Nobody can go there. Isn't that weird that nobody goes there? We just assume that people can't go there because of a dome or a radiation belt. But nobody goes there anymore. They say we used to go there. There used to be all sorts of missions to the moon. Now, whether this footage was shot in a studio or in the desert somewhere, nobody really knows. That's the assumption at this stage, right? We've never been to the moon. Why not? What's keeping us here? Everything is very suspicious. And while most people have an opinion as far as what's going on in the universe, it's important to not rule anything out at this stage. Why is that important? Because that's how Murphy's Law happens. When you start excluding possibilities, then the unexpected tends to happen. And so, what could be going on the moon right now? Nothing. It's just a mirage. Could be. Could be a hologram. Not a hollow moon, but a hologram moon. But it could be a Death Star. It looks like the Death Star from Star Wars, doesn't it? Where did they get that idea from? A Death Star. By looking at the moon? What you have to consider here is that the moon essentially is like a dead planet circling The globe. That's a naughty word these days. The globe. But even if it's just circling the flat disk, we've got this dead planet circling around us. And it looks gray. Gray. What a term, gray. Have you noticed how in the middle of winter things tend to look gray? What is it with the four seasons? Well, there's spring. We spring back to life. There's summer. That's like the prime of life. There's fall, which is kind of like getting older. Then there's winter, where many things look dead. And then it's the resurrection in the spring, once again. But what is it with the dead of winter? Everything looks gray. The nights are long. And for those that can see, there are some terrible things lurking at night. It's not just criminals, but evil spirits, shadow people, even UFOs. How many people have seen a UFO out there? Many people have. I've seen plenty of UFOs. What does that mean? There's essentially two main possibilities. We're the only humanoid species out there in this vast, infinite, or minuscule universe. Or there's a lot of aliens out there. Now, this is a very controversial subject because people tend to think of aliens as demons, meaning that they don't manifest in the flesh. And that could be the case. It could be that we've got aliens doing astral projection from somewhere, and this is what they look like when they're looking at us. And so, people don't really know. Most people don't really know if aliens exist in the flesh, or if they're just like ghosts, phantoms, haunting things. How many of you have seen the faces in the clouds? How many of you have seen the faces in the bushes, in the marble, in the rocks? Look a little incredible. They look a little Photoshop, but indeed, the video guy is fired. That was a previous broadcast. Fire the video guy. He didn't get the vaccine. Mandates are a thing these days. But we see faces, evil, unclean spirits in the fire, in the bushes, in the clouds. And while they look Photoshopped, these are bona fide images from the mainstream media. Millions of people have seen the faces in the clouds. Now the question is, do you see faces in the clouds at your location? Do you see faces staring at you from all sorts of different places? Some people do, and some people don't. But when we think about these faces in the clouds, in the bushes, in the trees, in the flames, in the smoke, What's the most famous face out there in nature? It's the man on the moon. That's the biggest face anybody's ever seen, and everybody's seen it. And what do you say to that face on the moon? Ah, that's nothing. That's normal. It's always been there. You don't even think twice about it. But let's build the picture here. We got faces of demons running around out there. We got a giant face on the moon, and the moon governs the darkness, governs the wickedness. Oh, that went by way too quickly. Video guy's fired. Fire the video guy. The face in the bush behind Obama. Have you seen the faces in the trees? Are you not paying attention? But most people have seen the faces in the clouds. Most people have seen the face on the moon. Can you see the moon at night where you're at your location? Can you see the stars? Many people in the city can't even see the stars anymore. They don't even bother looking at the moon. Oh, there it was. Gone again. There. But this phenomenon is more common than you might suspect. There's faces looking at you. Just about everywhere these days, during these end times. That's how spooky it is out there. It's like ecto-containment has been blown wide open, and the spooks are everywhere. So what does it mean? What does it mean? What is this object, this dead planet that's circling the planet? Could be a giant graveyard, could be a giant dump or depot for unclean spirits, a different kind of Death Star. This brings us back to the topic of spiritual warfare. We've been talking about this in some of our episodes. And so the moon looks like a target, a giant target just waiting to be confronted, spiritually speaking. Of course, none of us can go there. Is it even there? Is the question. But let us suppose that it is. Let us suppose that the moon is a major player in what's going on right now. Perhaps it's some kind of forward operating base. Perhaps there are aliens inside it looking at us like the Truman Show. Perhaps they've replaced our moon and this is a different moon. How do you know? Who's going out there in their rocket ship? I love hearing people tell me about the shape of the universe. And I'm all for different ideas. But how many people have been up there? How do you know what's going on, really? And so, if the moon is an enemy, then it should be on our list. It should be on our list of targets in spiritual warfare. So how do we target the moon? How do we attack the moon from our location? Well, this brings us back to the story of the fig tree moving mountains, if you believe. And so the same idea would apply to the moon. You can affect the moon with your thoughts, with your ideas. And so how should we attack the moon? And what is the moon planning for us? To suck the life right off the planet, to turn us into a dead planet? Is this moon like a giant parasite? How do we know? We got to test it out. In any case, it's a difficult decision to wage war against the moon. A decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. But given the circumstances, it might be worth the try. And so we're bringing this to everybody's attention. How do we attack the moon from our location? That's where it gets difficult to explain. But essentially, people should be imagining that there's something in the moon, at the core of the moon, that whatever the moon is, or whatever the moon represents, it's evil. That's why people get loony during the full moon. That's why the witches are casting moon spells and the like. And so you're going to have to use your imagination. You're going to have to imagine cracking this moon like an egg, spilling the insides, draining it of whatever might be there. If unclean spirits can latch on to bushes and trees and marble and rocks, jump out the flames, then imagine all of the unclean spirits that could be latching on to this moon. Have you ever seen dark shadows falling towards the earth during nightfall? Not sure how many people are nature lovers out there. Many of you never leave the city. You don't even know what nature is, except for when you go to the national park. But essentially, for people that live out in the country, perhaps you've noticed nightfall. There's a reason why they call it nightfall. You can see things falling with your third eye into our world as darkness sets in. It's as if they teleport from one side of the planet to the other. They follow the darkness. But the moon governs the darkness. The moon governs the night. And so, not only does the moon look like a dead planet, but chances are it's a haunted planet. That's the paradigm that we're looking at. And perhaps this is the reason why nobody goes there anymore. It's so haunted. There's so much negative energy there. Or there's aliens there. We don't really know. But there's a reason why they're not going there. And you'd think it'd be so easy. You'd think there'd be a webcam there, broadcasting live 24/7. But there ain't. So, If in the 70s they could make phone calls to the moon, why can't we have a webcam there today? Maybe there's already a base there. Secret base. There's a lot of possibilities. But whatever the moon is, much like Mars, it's bad news. A red planet, a dead planet. Mars, that is. But we'll leave Mars for another broadcast. Makes you wonder about these planets, though. In any case, the moon, cracking it like an egg, breaking it, draining it, sucking the energy out of it like a vampire, like a spiritual vampires. Yeah, you know, spiritual vampires exist. You have like these people that are sucking your energy out there in public, like leeches. And you feel them even more in the wintertime. That may sound strange and unusual, but this is stranger than fiction news. Broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet, ladies and gentlemen. So, we have to attack the moon. We have to give that a try, a chance to succeed. Feel bad for the moon, but let's light it up. Everybody out there with a third eye that can see, light up the moon. Break it open. Blow up its core. Drain it of all of its negative energy. Now you can go a step further. We were talking about manifesting the armor, Ephesians 6:13, in the physical world. And notably, the sword of the Spirit. How do you manifest the sword of the Spirit in the physical world? Well, you could get a big sword. You could get a rod, something made of iron or metal. Or you could get a knife. And you could inscribe, write, or tape your favorite Bible passage on it. The Word. And it becomes a physical manifestation of the sword of the Spirit, able to conduct your attacks through the sword in a spiritual way. It's quite the phenomenon. But you can literally see the beam coming from the sword. Of course, to get to that level, you really have to leave doubt behind. You have to be a believer. You have to know the Bible pretty much by heart. Not just some favorite passages, but all of Scripture, because it's all important. You have to have virtue. You have to be a decent person. And so it's an exclusive club, if you will. But if you meet those requirements and you've got a third eye, then we recommend manifesting the sword of the Spirit in the physical. And now you can actually attack in a different way. You'll want to go out into the country or in the backyard and essentially point the sword, the knife, the symbolic representation of the sword, right at the moon, and then start scribbling at it, etching at it. Imagine that your sword can reach, penetrate, and it will. And that's what everybody's going to have to do. They're going to have to attack the moon. It's becoming a full moon as we speak. And so this is the perfect opportunity to attack the core of the dark side, the core of this matrix, if you will. We could say more on the subject, but we'll have to leave it there. The moon is a big target, don't miss. And we'll follow up with another broadcast sometime soon. Until then, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.